For 40 years, a shadow haunted California. He was a phantom, a serial predator who vanished into the suburban sprawl of the 1970s. Police had thousands of leads, but the trail went cold. The Golden State Killer became a ghost story, until science caught up with the monster. In 2018, investigators uploaded a DNA profile from an old crime scene to a public genealogy database. They weren't looking for him, they were looking for his family tree. The search led them to a 72-year-old retired cop living a quiet life in Citrus Heights. Joseph James D'Angelo thought his secrets were buried by time. But your DNA is a witness that never dies. Through the power of genetic genealogy, the handcuffs finally clicked shut. Justice was delayed, but it wasn't denied. The code was cracked. The phantom was caught. This is DNA Justice Files. For over 20 years, a killer haunted the streets of South Los Angeles. He would strike, then vanish for decades, earning him the nickname the Grim Sleeper. Police were baffled. The trail was ice cold. He thought he had gotten away with it because he stopped. But DNA doesn't sleep. In 2010, a familial DNA search changed everything. Investigators didn't find the killer's DNA in the system. They found his son's. Undercover officers followed the father, Lonnie Franklin Jr., to a pizza parlor. They collected his discarded crust and a napkin. The DNA was a perfect match. The sleeper was finally awake, facing the families he destroyed. Science broke the silence. This is DNA Justice Files. In the dense woods of Allenstown, New Hampshire, a hunter made a grisly discovery: a 55-gallon drum containing the remains of a woman and a young girl. 15 years later, a second barrel was found just yards away with 2 more children. For decades, they were the Bear Brook Jane Does, and their killer was a ghost. Investigators were chasing a man of 1,000 names. He was Robert Evans in New Hampshire, Curtis Kimball in California, and Gordon Jensen in Arizona. He was a master of disappearance, abandoning children and skipping parole, always staying one step ahead of the law. The breakthrough didn't come from a fingerprint or a witness, but from a vial of degraded DNA. Using the same genetic genealogy techniques used to find the Golden State Killer, researchers began building a massive family tree, branch by branch, until every path led to one man. In 2017, the ghost finally got his real name back, Terry Peter Rasmussen. He had died in a California prison 7 years earlier, taking his secrets to the grave. But the science he couldn't outrun finally gave his victims their names back and closed the book on the chameleon killer. In 1996, a pipe bomb transformed the Atlanta Olympics into a nightmare. The suspect, Eric Rudolph, was a survivalist who vanished into the North Carolina mountains, triggering one of the largest manhunts in FBI history. For 5 years, Rudolph was a ghost. He lived in caves and bunkers, using military training to evade capture. To the world, he was a terrorist on the 10 most wanted list. To locals, he was the Appalachian Phantom. The breakthrough didn't happen in a lab, but behind a small-town grocery store. A rookie officer spotted a man scavenging in a dumpster. He looked like a drifter, but a discarded coffee cup told a different story. DNA from that cup confirmed the truth. It was Eric Rudolph. After half a decade in the wilderness, the Phantom was finally unmasked. It proved that no matter how deep you run, you can't outrun your own biology. For 15 years, a predator known as the NorCal Rapist terrorized Northern California. He was a ghost who struck in the dead of night, leaving behind a trail of victims but 0 leads. For decades, his DNA sat in evidence lockers, a code without a name. Investigators knew he was out there, likely living among his victims. The breakthrough came in 2018. Using genetic genealogy, detectives built a family tree from a distant cousin's DNA profile. The branches narrowed until they pointed to one man, Roy Charles Waller. By day, Waller was a respected safety specialist at UC Berkeley. By night, he had been a serial predator. Police tracked him to his office and watched. When he threw away a straw from his lunch, they moved in. The DNA on that straw was a perfect match. Waller was arrested at his desk, his reign of terror over. He was sentenced to 897 years, proving that even after decades, your own biology will eventually testify against you. Robert Hansen was a mild-mannered bakery owner in Anchorage, Alaska. But he lived a double life as a cold-blooded hunter who flew his victims into the remote wilderness, only to hunt them like prey. For years, women vanished, and the frozen ground kept his secrets. The police suspected Hansen, but he was a family man with a solid alibi. The ice finally broke when a young woman named Cindy Paulson escaped his plane and led investigators back to his door. A search of Hansen's attic revealed a hidden aviation map marked with small X symbols. When investigators used the map to find the sites, they discovered the remains. Even in the 1980s, the early application of forensic matching tied the evidence in his plane and his home directly to the victims. The butcher-baker thought the Alaskan wilderness was a graveyard that couldn't talk, but the science proved him wrong. He was sentenced to 461 years plus life. In 1987, Jay Cook and Tanya Van Cuylenborg vanished during a trip to Seattle. Their bodies were found in the Washington wilderness, but the killer remained a ghost for 30 years. Police had his DNA, but no name to go with it. In 2018, the game changed. Investigators uploaded the profile to a genealogy site and found the killer's second cousins. They built a family tree that led to one man, a truck driver named William Earl Talbot II. Undercover detectives trailed Talbot's truck for days, waiting for a break. Finally, he tossed a used coffee cup out of his window. They grabbed it before it even stopped rolling. The DNA on the rim was a perfect match. 31 years later, a discarded cup ended the mystery. Talbot was sentenced to 2 life terms. In 1979, 18-year-old Michelle Martinko was found murdered in her family's car at a mall in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. For decades, the case was a black hole. Investigators had the killer's DNA from her dress, but no name in any database matched the profile. In 2018, everything changed. Forensic genealogy pointed to 3 brothers who grew up an hour away. 2 were cleared immediately, leaving one man, Jerry Burns. Police needed his DNA, so they followed him to a Pizza Ranch restaurant. They watched as he finished his meal and sipped soda through a clear plastic straw. The moment Burns walked out, a detective swooped in and grabbed the straw from his table. That discarded straw held the secret. The DNA on it was a 1 in 100 billion match to the crime scene. Nearly 40 years after Michelle's life was taken, the straw at the Pizza Ranch finally put her killer behind bars. Jerry Burns was sentenced to life in prison. In 1964, 12-year-old Mary Teresa Simpson vanished. For over 60 years, her family lived in a nightmare of unanswered questions and cynical accusations. The trail went cold almost immediately. Decades turned into generations. Her parents passed away, never knowing who took their daughter, while a nameless killer walked free. But science doesn't forget. In February 2026, cold case investigators used advanced forensic genealogy to do the impossible. They tracked a genetic profile through a labyrinth of family trees. The search led them to the grave of a man who died decades ago, Alfred Raymond Murray Jr. By exhuming his remains and comparing the DNA, the truth was finally unearthed. After 62 years, the secret is out. Mary Teresa finally has her name back, and her killer finally has a face. Justice is never truly out of reach. In late 1980, the bodies of a young couple, Tina Gale Lynn and Harold Dean Close Jr., were found in a wooded area in Houston, Texas. They had been brutally murdered. But what chilled investigators even more was the missing piece of their lives, their infant daughter, Holly Marie Clouse. For over 40 years, the Clouse murders remained unsolved, and Holly's whereabouts were a mystery. Then in 2021, forensic genealogists identified Tina and Harold. The break in the case didn't just solve a murder, it uncovered an unbelievable truth. Holly Marie, now an adult, had been dropped off at an Arizona church by 2 barefoot women in robes shortly after her parents' deaths. She was raised under a different name by a non-denominational cult, never knowing her true identity or the horrific fate of her biological family. In 2022, DNA confirmed it. The woman living in Oklahoma was indeed Holly Marie Clouse. After 42 years, the stolen baby was finally reunited with her surviving biological family. The past always finds a way to surface.